She was just making coffee until Cartel killed her team and she went full rampage. Morning sun cast long shadows across the remote D outpost in the Colombian mountains as Staff Sergeant Maya ghosts. Rodriguez stirred her third cup of black coffee. The metal spoon clinked against the ceramic mug in the otherwise silent mess hall. 6 months of hunting the Viper cartel through these unforgiving peaks had taught her to appreciate these quiet moments. "You're up early again?" Ghost called out Agent Sarah Chen, entering with her tactical gear already strapped on. "Mission briefing isn't for another hour." Maya took a slow sip and stared out the reinforced window at the mist-covered valley below. "Couldn't sleep. Something feels off about today's OP." The coffee was bitter, like everything else in this godforsaken place, but it kept her sharp. Her calloused fingers, marked by years of handling weapons, wrapped around the warm mug. Team leader Captain Jake Morrison burst through the mess hall doors, his face grim. "Change of plans. Intel says Miguel Santos himself is moving through the Eastern Valley today. This is our shot at the head of the snake." The other team members filed in quickly. There was Rodriguez from Texas, tough as nails with a scar running down his left cheek. Tommy Tank Williams, the heavy weapons specialist who could carry a minigun like it was a pistol. Alina Vasquez, their translator and local guide who knew these mountains better than anyone. And finally, young Corporal Danny Miller, fresh from Quantico, but deadly with explosives. "Santos has been a ghost for 3 years, Chen said, checking her rifle. "Why show himself now?" Morrison spread a satellite photo across the wooden table. "Our informant says he's personally overseeing a major shipment. 50 million in pure cocaine, headed for Miami. We take him down." We crippled their entire operation. Maya finished her coffee and stood up. The familiar weight of her M4 carbine felt reassuring across her back. "What's the extraction plan?" "2 Blackhawks will be on standby. In and out, clean and simple," Morrison replied, but his eyes betrayed concern. "Ghost, you'll take an overwatch position on the ridge. Your sniper skills are what we need if things go sideways." Maya nodded, already running tactical scenarios in her mind. 3 tours in Afghanistan had taught her that nothing ever went according to plan. Rules of engagement? Santos is priority 1. Alive, if possible. But if it comes down to protecting civilians or our team, ... Morrison's voice trailed off. They all knew the answer. Tank cracked his knuckles, the sound echoing in the small room. "About time we nailed this bastard. My cousin Maria was one of the kids who OD'd on his product in Phoenix. Save the vengeance talk for later," Maya said, checking her sidearm. "We do this by the book. Professional, clean." She had learned long ago that emotion got soldiers. Killed Delana spread out a detailed topographical map next to the satellite photo. "The valley has 3 choke points. If Santos is smart, he'll have lookouts posted here, here, and here." Her finger traced the elevated positions. "Then we go in silence," Morrison decided. "Radio silence until we have eyes on target. Maya, you'll have the best view from Eagle's Nest Ridge. Can you make the shot from there?" Maya studied the map, calculating wind patterns and elevation. 1,500 meters, maybe 1,800, depending on his exact position. No problem. In Afghanistan, she had made impossible shots in worse conditions. Danny, barely old enough to buy alcohol, but already a demolition expert, looked nervous. What if it's a trap? Santos didn't survive this long by being careless. The question hung in the air like smoke from Maya's coffee. She set down her empty mug and met each teammate's eyes. These people weren't just colleagues. They were family. 6 months of life and death missions had forged bonds stronger than blood. "Then we adapt and overcome," she said simply. Like always, the team spent the next hour reviewing contingencies, emergency signals, and backup plans. Maya cleaned her rifle with practiced precision, each movement automatic after 15 years of military service. The Barrett .50 cal that would be her primary weapon today was a beautiful instrument of precision death. As they prepared to move out, Maya took one last look at the mess hall. The coffee pot still burbled on the counter, filling the room with its rich aroma. Something deep in her gut whispered that this morning routine might be her last peaceful moment for a long time. The jungle humidity hit them like a physical wall as the team descended from the outpost into the valley. Maya moved with the silent grace of a predator, her boots finding purchase on the treacherous mountain paths without disturbing a single stone. 15 years of combat had taught her that noise kills. Comes check. Morrison whispered into his throat mic. "Ghost." "Copy," Maya responded, adjusting the weight of her sniper rifle. "Tank." "Good to go," came Williams' gravelly voice. Eagle eye position, Elena confirmed from her forward scout position. Boom, boom. Ready to rock, Danny added, using his explosives calcine. They moved in practiced formation through the dense foliage. Maya's trained eyes constantly scanned for threats, her finger never far from her trigger. The morning mist provided excellent cover, but it also concealed potential ambushes. 2 hours into the descent, Alina raised her fist, signaling contact. The team froze instantly. Through her scope, Maya could see movement in the valley below. Armed men in civilian clothes? Definitely cartel soldiers. I count 12 tangos, Alina whispered. Looks like advanced security. Morrison studied the scene through his binoculars. Santos isn't taking any chances. Ghost, can you reach Eagle's Nest from here? Maya evaluated the terrain. The ridge position would give her perfect overwatch of the entire valley, but getting there meant climbing another 1,000 feet through potentially hostile territory. 30 minutes. If I push hard, do it. We'll maintain position and wait for your signal. Maya slung her rifle and began the climb. Her muscles burned as she ascended the steep slope, using roots and rocks for handholds. The specialized mountaineering training from her Army Ranger days kicked in. Each movement calculated for maximum efficiency and minimum noise. Halfway up, she heard voices below. Spanish, spoken in the rapid-fire dialect of the coast. Her language training allowed her to catch fragments. Americans ... watching. Kill them all. Her blood ran cold. They had been compromised. Maya activated her throat mic. All units, this is Ghost. We're blown. Repeat. Mission is compromised. Static answered her. She tried again. Team leader. Respond. Nothing. Fighting down panic, Maya pushed harder up the mountain. Her hands were bleeding from gripping sharp rocks, but she ignored the pain. Something had gone terribly wrong, and her team was in danger. She reached Eagle's Nest just as the shooting started below. Through her scope, Maya watched her worst nightmare unfold. Her team was surrounded in a clearing, dozens of cartel soldiers emerging from concealed positions. They had walked straight into a carefully prepared ambush. Drop your weapons. A voice shouted in accented English. Surrender, and you live. Maya's finger found her trigger. She could take out several targets, but not enough to save her team from this distance. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she watched Morrison raise his hands. We're D agents. Morrison called out, This is an international incident. The response was a single gunshot. Morrison crumpled to the ground. Jake. Chen screamed, raising her weapon. More gunshots erupted. Maya watched helplessly as Tank spun and fell, blood spraying from his chest. Alina tried to run, but made it only 3 steps before bullets cut her down. No. Maya whispered, her scope tracking from one falling teammate to another. Danny. Young Danny, who had been so nervous this morning, stood over Tank's body with his hands up. Please, I surrender. Don't the cartel soldiers executed him with cold precision. Chen was the last one standing, wounded and surrounded. Through her scope, Maya could see tears streaming down her partner's face. Sarah looked directly up at Eagle's Nest. Somehow sensing Maya's position, their eyes met across the impossible distance. Sarah mouthed 2 words. Kill them. Then she drew her sidearm and went down fighting. Maya's world exploded into red fury. Her teammates, her family, executed like animals. The coffee they had shared that morning, the jokes, the plans for after the mission, all of it destroyed in seconds. She centered her crosshairs on the man who had shot. Morrison. A large figure in expensive tactical gear who was clearly the leader. Miguel Santos himself, she realized. The monster they had come to capture had turned their mission into a slaughter. Maya took a deep breath, let half of it out, and squeezed the trigger. Santos. Head disappeared in a pink mist. The .50 caliber round echoed across the valley like thunder. But killing one man wouldn't bring back her team. Maya counted the remaining cartel soldiers through her scope. 43 tangos, all armed, all responsible. For murdering her family, she had enough ammunition for a small war. Time to give them one. Maya's second shot took out the cartel's radio man. Before he could call for reinforcements, the .50 caliber round punched through his chest and continued traveling, killing the man behind him as well. Panic rippled through the enemy ranks as they scrambled for cover. Donned Esta El Francata Rotter. Voices shouted from below. Where's the sniper? Maya was already moving. 15 years of combat had taught her that staying in one position after taking shots was suicide. She grabbed her gear and sprinted along the ridgeline. Using the natural rock formations for concealment, the cartel soldiers were firing wildly at the mountainside, their rounds sparking off stones hundreds of yards from her actual position. Amateurs. They might be brutal killers, but they lacked military training. Maya found a new position 300 meters south and settled in behind a fallen log. Through her scope, she could see the enemy had discovered her teammates' bodies. Several soldiers were stripping weapons and equipment, while others formed search teams. She centered her crosshairs on a group of 3 men examining Tank's heavy machine gun. 1 shot, 3 kills as the massive bullet passed through all 3 targets. The hypervelocity round from her Barrett rifle had enough energy to penetrate multiple human bodies. She's on the South Ridge. Someone screamed. A dozen cartel soldiers began climbing toward her position, their AK-47s chattering as they laid down suppressing fire. Maya counted heads quickly, too many for precision shooting. Time to switch tactics. She slung the Barrett and pulled out her M4 carbine, switching it to full auto. As the first climber reached her level, Maya rose from behind the log like an avenging angel. The close-quarters battle was brutal and personal. Maya's training took over, muscle memory guiding her movements as she engaged multiple targets simultaneously. The first 3 men never saw her coming. Her suppressed carbine spoke in measured triplets, each burst finding its mark. A 4th soldier rounded the rock outcropping just as Maya was reloading. He raised his rifle, but Maya was faster. Her tactical knife found his throat before he could pull the trigger. Contact south. She's mobile. Radio chatter crackled from the dead man's equipment. Maya grabbed his radio and spoke in perfect Spanish. "You killed my family. Now I'm going to kill all of you." She hurled the radio against the rocks, shattering it, then collected ammunition from the dead soldiers. The remaining cartel members in the valley had spread out, trying to surround the mountain, but Maya had advantages they couldn't understand. She knew these peaks intimately after 6 months of operations, and she was no longer constrained by rules of engagement. Moving like a ghost through the terrain that had given her calcine, Maya stalked her prey with methodical precision. She had become something beyond a soldier. She was vengeance incarnate, and these mountains were her killing ground. A sniper team had set up in the trees 400 meters northeast. Maya approached from their blind spot, using a dry creek bed for concealment. When she was within 50 meters, she lobbed a fragmentation grenade into their nest. The explosion silenced their rifles permanently. From their position, she recovered a high-powered scope and extra ammunition. Through the enhanced optics, she could see the remaining cartel soldiers were regrouping near their vehicles, armored SUVs and pickup trucks with mounted machine guns. Maya smiled coldly. They thought mobility would save them. She had other plans. Working her way downhill, Maya reached a position overlooking the road that led out of the valley. If any of Santos's men escaped to report what had happened here, more innocents would die. Now that couldn't happen. Maya began placing explosive charges along the narrow mountain road using techniques Danny had taught her during their demolitions training. The young corporal's death gave her skills their purpose. Every wire she connected, every timer she set, was a memorial to his murdered life. When the charges were ready, she moved to high ground and waited. The first armored SUV hit her improvised minefield at full speed. The explosion flipped the 3-ton vehicle completely over, crushing everyone inside. The second vehicle slammed on its brakes, but Maya was ready with her rifle. Her shot penetrated the windshield and continued through the driver's seat, killing both the driver and the passenger behind him. The SUV careened off the road and rolled down the mountainside. The remaining vehicles tried to reverse, but Maya had anticipated this. Her second set of charges detonated behind them, blocking the retreat route with tons of rock and debris. They were trapped in the valley with her, just like she wanted. Maya checked her ammunition and began her descent. The hunt was far from over. She was no longer hunted. She was the hunter. The trapped cartel soldiers had abandoned their vehicles and taken defensive positions in the valley's rocky terrain. Maya counted 23 remaining hostiles through her scope. Professional killers who had murdered her teammates without mercy. They would receive none in return. Maya had shed her tactical vest and excess gear, keeping only her weapons and ammunition. Speed and stealth were her allies now. She moved through the shadows like her calcine suggested, peering where enemies least expected. A 3-man patrol was searching the eastern slope when death found them. Maya's suppressed carbine whispered 3 times, and the patrol simply ceased to exist. She took their radio and listened to increasingly panicked communications. "We've lost contact with Patrol 7. A voice crackled. "Patrol 4, report your position, static. Dios mío, she's picking us off one by one. Fear was spreading through their ranks like poison. Maya had learned psychological warfare in Afghanistan. A terrified enemy makes mistakes, and mistakes get people killed. She found the next group trying to establish an overwatch position on a boulder formation for men with sniper rifles, thinking they could turn the tables on her. Maya approached from below, using the rocks themselves to mask her movement. The first indication they had of trouble was when their spotter's head exploded like a melon. Maya's .45 caliber sidearm had been pressed against the base of his skull when she pulled the trigger. The other three spun around, but Maya was already moving. Years of close-quarters combat training flowed through her like water. She rolled behind cover as their panicked shots sparked off stone, then came up firing. 3 shots, 3 kills. Maya collected their equipment and ammunition, then used their radio to listen to enemy communications. The remaining soldiers were consolidating near the valley's center, probably planning a coordinated assault on her last known position. That was fine with her. She knew exactly where they would be. The central area of the valley featured a cluster of abandoned buildings, an old mining camp from decades past. Perfect for an ambush, with multiple levels, thick walls, and overlapping fields of fire. Maya had scouted it during their initial reconnaissance. She also knew its weakness, working. Her way around to the camp's eastern edge, Maya located the old mine entrance. The tunnel system connected to several buildings, providing concealed movement throughout the complex. More importantly, it led directly beneath the main structure, where the cartel soldiers would likely establish their command post. Maya crawled through the narrow tunnel, her tactical light cutting through absolute darkness. The air was thick with decades of dust and decay, but she ignored the claustrophobic conditions. Tank had always joked that she was part mole. It's equally comfortable above or below ground. The memory of his laugh nearly broke her focus. Maya pushed the emotion aside. Grief was a luxury she couldn't afford until every one of these monsters was dead. She emerged in the basement of the main building and could hear voices above. Spanish mixed with English, at least 8 different speakers. Perfect. They had gathered in one location. Just as she had hoped, Maya placed her remaining explosive charges at key structural points throughout the basement, then climbed to the first floor. Through gaps in the floorboards, she could see muzzle flashes and hear movement on the level above. The cartel soldiers were positioning themselves at windows and doorways, preparing for her assault. They expected her to come from outside, not from below. Maya armed the charges and made her way to the building's rear exit. She had 60 seconds before the explosives. It's detonated 50-9, 50-8. She reached the doorway and turned back toward the building 50-5, 50-4. Through the windows, she could see shadowy figures moving around, checking their weapons, probably feeling confident about their defensive position. 48, 40-7. Maya raised her carbine and waited. 30 seconds. Where is she? A voice called from inside. She should have attacked by now. 20 seconds. Maybe she ran away. Other voice suggested. 10 seconds. Maya smiled coldly and whispered to the empty air, "This is for my family." The explosion lifted the entire building off its foundation. When the dust settled, Maya walked through the rubble, checking for survivors. There weren't any. The mining camp had become a tomb for Santos's soldiers, just like the valley had become a tomb for her teammates. Maya's radio crackled with a familiar voice. Helicopter rotors in the background. "Ghost, this is command. Extraction team inbound. What's your status?" For the first time since the massacre began, Maya allowed herself to feel the weight of what had happened. Her team was gone. Jake, Tommy, Alina, Sarah, Danny, all dead because of greed and violence. But they had been avenged. Maya keyed her radio and spoke in a voice that sounded foreign to her own ears. Mission accomplished. All hostiles eliminated. She walked toward the extraction point, leaving behind a valley filled with the dead. The extraction helicopters found Maya sitting on a boulder overlooking the carnage, her rifle across her lap and her uniform soaked in blood. Most of it wasn't hers. She had sustained only minor injuries during the battle. Some cuts from rock shrapnel and bruises from diving for cover. Commander Patricia Williams, Morrison's superior, approached carefully. Maya's reputation as a stone-cold professional was well known, but something in her posture suggested she was balanced on a knife's edge. Sergeant Rodriguez Williams said formally, "I need a full debrief on what happened here." Maya stood slowly, every muscle in her body protesting. The adrenaline crash was hitting hard now, leaving her feeling hollow and exhausted. "They were waiting for us. Someone leaked our mission parameters. Williams nodded grimly. We suspected as much. Internal Affairs is already investigating possible security breaches. She looked around at the destruction, overturned vehicles, collapsed buildings, bodies scattered across the valley floor. Jesus Christ, Maya. You did all this alone? They killed my team, Maya said simply. I killed them back. The casualty count was staggering. 47 confirmed enemy dead, including Miguel Santos himself. 0 survivors. Maya had methodically eliminated an entire cartel cell in less than 6 hours of continuous combat. Williams had seen plenty of action in her 20-year career. But this level of devastation from a single operator was unprecedented. The brass is going to want to understand exactly how I used superior tactics. Better training and home field advantage, Maya interrupted. Plus, they made the mistake of murdering people I cared about. The helicopter medic tried to examine Maya's injuries, but she waved him off. I'm fine. Check on the pilot who extracted the bodies first. Another helicopter had already recovered her teammates' remains. Maya had insisted on personally overseeing their preparation for transport, ensuring they would return home with dignity despite the violence of their deaths. During the flight back to base, Williams reviewed Maya's preliminary report. The tactical precision was remarkable. Every kill had been clean and efficient, with minimal ammunition expenditure. Maya had turned the valley into a textbook example of asymmetric warfare. There's going to be an investigation, Williams warned. 47 kills in one engagement raises questions. Even when justified, Maya stared out the helicopter window at the receding mountains. Let them investigate. I've got nothing to hide. Back at headquarters, the debrief took 4 hours. Maya answered every question with mechanical precision, walking investigators through each tactical decision and engagement. Her tone never wavered, her details never changed. She had become a human after-action report. The investigation concluded within a week. Maya's actions were deemed completely justified under the circumstances she had been. Outnumbered 47-1, and had acted in self-defense after witnessing her teammates' execution. The cartel had fired first and shown no mercy. The brass offered Maya anything she wanted: promotion, choice of assignment, extended leave, psychological counseling. She declined it all and put in for immediate transfer to a solo operations unit. You sure about this? Williams asked during their final meeting. After what happened, no one would blame you for wanting a desk job. Maya had spent the week cleaning out her teammates' lockers, forwarding personal effects to their families, and writing condolence letters. The bureaucratic details of death were almost harder than the actual fighting had been. I work better alone now, Maya said. That valley taught me something important. What's that? Maya shouldered her gear bag and headed for the door. When someone hurts my people, I become their worst nightmare. She walked out of the building and didn't look back. There were other cartels out there, other monsters who thought they could murder innocent people without consequences. Maya Rodriguez, Calcine Ghost, was going to teach them otherwise, one bullet at a time. 3 months later, Maya sat in a different safe house in a different country, drinking coffee that tasted just as bitter as the morning her world had changed. The cup was identical, white ceramic with a chip on the handle, but everything else was different. She was different. The classified file on her table contained photos of another cartel operation, this one based in Mexico and responsible for trafficking children across the border. 12 kids had disappeared in the past month, all between the ages of 6 and 14. Maya studied the intelligence reports with the same methodical precision she had once applied to legitimate military operations. But she was no longer bound by rules of engagement or international law. Her new employers operated in the shadows, funded by people who understood that some problems required unofficial solutions. Her secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message: package confirmed. Targets identified. Green light approved. Maya deleted the message and finished her coffee. The familiar ritual brought back memories of Jake Morrison's final briefing, Tank Williams cracking his knuckles, young Danny Miller's nervous energy, Elena Vasquez's detailed maps, and Sarah Chen's professional competence. They were still dead. She had avenged them, but vengeance hadn't brought them back. However, it had taught her something valuable about herself. Maya Rodriguez was exceptionally good at hunting monsters. So good that certain government agencies had taken notice and offered her a new kind of mission, one with no oversight, no backup, and no rules except one: eliminate the target. Maya stripped and cleaned her weapons with practiced efficiency. The Barrett .50 cal from the Colombian Valley had been retired to a place of honor in her apartment, but she had acquired new tools for her new profession. A custom rifle built specifically for her requirements, untraceable ammunition, and specialized equipment that didn't officially exist. She also wore something new around her neck, 5 dog tags on a thin chain. Not hers, but her teammates. She had recovered them from the valley before leaving. Now they accompanied her on every mission. Jake Morrison would have disapproved of what she had become. He believed in justice, legal process, and working within the system. But Jake Morrison was dead, killed by monsters who didn't respect laws or borders or human decency. Maya had learned to speak their language. Her target this time was Eduardo El Martillo Gutierrez, the hammer who specialized in acquiring children for wealthy clients around the world. His organization had tentacles reaching into law enforcement, government, and legitimate businesses. Conventional law enforcement couldn't touch him. Maya could. She memorized the intelligence file and burned it in the safe house's fireplace. No evidence, no trail, no witnesses. El Martillo would simply vanish one day. Hopefully the children would be found and returned to their families. Maya's phone rang. A normal call this time, not encrypted Maya. It's Patricia Williams. Her former commander's voice brought back unwelcome memories. Commander, I thought our business was finished. It is. This is personal. I wanted to check on you, see how you're adjusting to civilian life. Civilian life. If only she knew. I'm fine, Maya said. Keeping busy? Good to hear. Listen, there's a position opening up at Quantico, training new agents in tactical operations. Your experience in Colombia would be invaluable for thanks. But I'm not interested in training people, Maya interrupted. I've found my calling. There was a long pause. Williams was smart enough to read between the lines. Maya, whatever you're doing, be careful. The world needs people like you alive and fighting the good fight. I am fighting the good fight, Maya said. Just not the way I used to. After ending the call, Maya gathered her equipment and prepared to leave the safe house. El Martillo was expecting a delivery tonight at his compound outside Juarez. 12 children in shipping containers. Bound for auction to the highest bidders. Maya intended to disrupt his business model permanently. She loaded her gear into a nondescript van and began the drive toward the border. The radio played soft music, a bizarre contrast to her deadly cargo. Maya found herself humming along something she hadn't done since Colombia. Perhaps she was finally healing. Not from the loss of her teammates, that wound would never fully close, but from the helplessness she had felt watching them die. She had power now, agency, the ability to act without permission or oversight. Maya reached across to touch the dog tags around her neck. Another one for the team, she whispered to her fallen friends. These kids are going home. The sun was setting as she approached the border, painting the desert in shades of red and gold. Beautiful country, despite the ugliness that humans brought to it. Maya had seen enough beauty and ugliness to last several lifetimes. But she wasn't done yet. Not while monsters like El Martillo existed. Not while children needed protection. Not while she had ammunition left. Maya Rodriguez. The woman who had once shared coffee with her teammates in a Colombian outpost no longer existed. In her place sat Ghost, a phantom who hunted evil wherever it tried to hide. She accelerated toward the border and her next mission, leaving nothing behind but the memory of bitter coffee and the promise of justice for those who couldn't fight for themselves. The war would continue, and she would win it, one target at a time.